Hey everybody, this is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and as I've done for at least the last year, maybe 2 years, I'm going to be looking at my favorite games so far this year. Unlike my end of the year list where I break things down by like crowdfunding and release this year and previous years, this is just going to be a big smorgasbord of my favorite 10 games so far this year that are new on the channel. Again, not necessarily new to me, but the first time we've done videos for them. So jumping right in, these are in no particular order, is Aeon, Trespass, Odyssey, which delivered right at the end of the year, but I didn't get around to making a video for until January, I think. This is, if you haven't heard of it, a giant campaign game with kind of a lot of elements of Kingdom Death Monster. So it's a boss battler, but you're also adventuring around on this map and having like all these narrative things, leveling up your characters. It's a monstrosity. It's super expensive. They kickstarted a new version. Now it costs even more, and it's going to be too much for a lot of people, but for me, it was very engrossing. I played this one for weeks and couldn't put it away. Eventually, I brought it to Peter's house, and he's been playing it a whole bunch, so I haven't played it recently. But yeah, I think this one is awesome. If you like big, epic adventures, there's few that can beat it. Okay, then switching from something from the beginning of the year to something that we just covered recently, Valor and Villainy, Lludwik's Labyrinth is another favorite of mine this year. And this one is a light, family-friendly dungeon crawler with kind of a mix of one-off and campaign play. You unlock things, you make choices, you get new characters. It's very quick to play, very fun. It was very engrossing for me. I played through the entire 8-mission main campaign in just a couple of days. I loved this one back when I did previews, and I enjoy it still. My family's been enjoying it too. So, yeah, I think it's a really solid one if you like simple exploration, simple combat mechanics, interesting action choices, kind of an unlockable campaign without having to like keep track of too much stuff. Definitely a much different beast than Aeon Trespass, which is so huge and has such a long campaign. This one's very manageable. So that's Valor and Villainy, Lludwik's Labyrinth. And then we go to something completely different. The Light in the Mist is another favorite of the year so far. Although this one I did cover like right at the end of December. It didn't quite make it into my last year list, so I made it eligible for this year. This is a set of tarot cards, basically, but they contain a bunch of different riddles that go with a narrative book. And the writing is great. The mysteries are fun but challenging. There's a great website to give you hints if you get lost in kind of increasing levels, so you never feel like you're just getting handheld through everything. I am a little bit biased because my wife has loved this one, and we played through the entire thing together, but I really think this is an excellent one, and hey, a lot cheaper than any of the other ones I've mentioned so far. This is The Light in the Mist. And the fourth one I'm going to talk about is Leviathan Wilds. And I'm pretty sure this made it onto a previous list because this was crowdfunded once, didn't get as much money as they wanted, and now they did another crowdfunding campaign this year, and this time it did fund. And I just think this one is great. It's inspired by Shadows of the Colossus. You and other players are climbing up these giant beasts, trying to smash their crystals, survive their attacks. Has a ton of variety in climbers, ton of variety in the Leviathans you are climbing. I continue to think this one is great. I think they made awesome improvements for the second crowdfunding campaign. Still really, really excited for this one. That's been a pretty consistent thing, and this remains in my top 10 so far for this year. Then another one I recently covered is Witchcraft, fifth game on the list. This is also a recent crowdfunding, although it should be delivering by the end of the year, so I guess it won't be on my crowdfunding list at the end. It'll probably be on my release list. This is the follow-up to Resist. I loved that game. I love this game. This cool mishmash in solo card play of using your cards in your deck for their more or less powerful effects, but if you use the more powerful ones, you call them out of your deck. I think the changes in this one, in terms of like theme and some of the mechanics, make it for me even better than Resist, although that won't be the case for a lot of people. And I like the variety here where if you have different like town elders, then you get totally different mixes of monsters and missions. So excellent game. Really looking forward to the full release of this one, which again should be coming pretty quickly because the entire game's already done. They're just going to print it right away. But this is Witchcraft, the fifth game on the list. But again, there's not really in an order, so who cares? Sixth game is Skytear Horde. This is another one that I did a crowdfunding preview, but then this year I covered the final game. A solo cooperative kind of tower defense-ish game with some fun hand management, a bunch of different factions you can control, enemies you can face off against. They had a new crowdfunding campaign that went pretty well, so there's going to be even more eventually for this, which is good because right now the game has deck construction, but it doesn't work that well because there aren't that many options. So expanding that should definitely be fun. But yes, I continue to enjoy this one quite a bit. Great for solo, great for two-player play. That's the only counts you can do. Well, I guess there's a competitive play, but don't play that. So that's Skytear Horde. And next is Keep the Heroes Out. Kind of a defensive game where you're moving around these tiles, trying to protect them from invading heroes. You are the monsters. The variety of monsters is great. There's some deck building, although it's not like the star of the show, but it still works pretty well. The art and the meeples are adorable. And certainly this one has a higher place in my estimation because my son, my oldest, has really enjoyed it, so he asks for it quite often. There's a bunch of different scenarios that change things up. So a great package, a great value for what you get. Keep the Heroes Out. Excellent game for this year. Then another great game, another one of my favorites so far this year, is Maximum Apocalypse Wasted Wilds, the newest Maximum Apocalypse set. I didn't love the original Maximum Apocalypse that much, but they've continued iterating and improving in each release. And now this one I think is the best. They've got more interesting scenarios with more consistent play, a little bit less swinginess. They continue to have the great different decks and characters with different abilities you can use. The narrative is still interesting. They've added some fun like environmental effects and alliance faction effects. I think it's all great. And the fact that you can backport a lot of these good improvements to previous versions of the game, especially the Legendary set, I think it's called, I think is a nice little extra icing on top. So Maximum Apocalypse Wasted Wilds, great improvement to an existing system. And finally, the last two ones on the list maybe shouldn't be here. First is Wonderland's War. This doesn't have an official solo co-op expansion or variant, but I made my own solo variant that I think works really well, and I just really enjoy this one. This is a area control game with bag building and sort of push your luck, Quacks of Quedlinburg-ish fighting. It's big, maybe bigger than it needs to be, but it has tons of variety in the factions, the chips you can get, cards you can recruit. The battles are exciting and thrilling. Again, I think my solo variant works really well, so it's definitely, I think, worth it for solo play. So yeah, this one is a little bit of a beast, but it is an excellent experience, really well designed. That's Wonderland's War. And my 10th favorite game of the year so far is Summoner Wars 2nd Edition. And this one also maybe shouldn't be on here because the only way to play it solo is with the online implementation of this little campaign mode they made. There is no way to play it solo like with the actual just base card game, except for maybe variants that I have not tried out. But I used to love the original Summoner Wars, but it had some awkward parts in the design. The new Summoner Wars is amazing, and I've been playing it with my son just an absolute ton. So this is kind of more of a competitive game than a solo game, but I like the solo campaign they have as well. I hope they implement more factions, because right now you can only play with the goblins against a bunch of different factions. But I think it's a fantastic game, one of the best like 1v1 kind of skirmish games I've played. Fully recommend, mainly for competitive play, but hey, you can cheat it into the solo mode, just like I'm cheating to put it on this list. So there you go, my favorite 10 games of the year so far, although this list is going to change drastically because I know at least 3 or 4 games I have on my pile right now look ridiculous, or ones I've already played but haven't featured on the channel yet are amazing. So there's a lot to come in 2023. I think this is going to be, like last year, a pretty awesome year for great games on my list. But thanks for watching, everybody. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.